Hi there, welcome back, and we're back again looking at one of the main set legendary creatures that I've taken and turned into a commander deck. And today is going to be Yuna, Hope of Spira. 3 green and white for a 3/5 legendary human cleric. And it says, during your turn, Yuna and enchantment creatures you control have trample, lifelink and ward 2. And at the beginning of our end step, we can return up to 1 target enchantment card from our graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Now, I'll be honest, I wasn't overly going to do this card, but then I thought about it and thought, well, we've got all the new summons, they're all sagas, let's have some fun with some sagas. So that's where we're going today. I mean, Una really does give herself over to a saga commander, and yeah, I figured it's time to have a look at it and try and do it that way. So here we go. There's nothing too fancy in here, so bear with me, but hey, today's deck is all about sagas and how Una can help us do it. So here we go. So another deck this week with another Planeswalker in it, and it's going to be Destiny's Hand today. We like looking at the top 4 cards of our library and finding enchantments. Then we, exile target creature you control, you don't control until target enchantment you control leaves the battlefield. That's nice. And then the -7, return all enchantment cards from our graveyard to the battlefield. Really does help in this deck when we've got lots and lots of sagas that will be going out a turn and hitting the graveyard. So hopefully we don't come out against any decks that really destroy our graveyard. Let's hope. Anyway, creatures. Now, the creatures are a bit weird, I'll be honest, because we've got some that really rely on enchantments and other things and things that support them. So, Generous Visitor is a bit of a no-brainer. We're going to have a lot of enchantment spells kicking around and coming in, so we might as well try and get some +1/+1 counters while we're on the move for it. The Composer of Spring comes in as well, so we can go and find those lands to help us cast even more. Nice if we've got 6 or more enchantments in play as well. We get to go and find a creature or land card and put it from our hand onto the battlefield tap. So it does get you around some of the casting costs eventually. One of the other main deck legends from Final Fantasy was Garnet, Princess of Alexandria. Whenever it attacks, you may remove a lore counter from any numbers of sagas you control and put a +1/+1 counter on Garnet for each lore counter removed this way. This does help us quite significantly keep our sagas around, which is nice, but just be careful. Garnet does tend to be a lightning rod for every bit of removal someone has, so bear that in mind. Then we've got some more of the traditional enchantment deck based creatures. We've got the Herald of the Pantheon to help us make the casting cost of the enchantments even cheaper. Cameo Transcendence, so we can get this really big, and then at the beginning of our each end step, if an enchantment was put into our graveyard this way, we can return this from our graveyard to our hands. So we have a returning creature, which is nice. Nessian Wanderer just does the same thing. We go and find a land card, put it in our hand every time we cast an enchantment, well, when an enchantment we control enters, because of the Constellation ability. Sanctum Weaver just gives us a silly amount of mana in this deck eventually. Saskia, the Living Lore, is just nice because we can put a lore counter on each saga we control, or when it dies we can return sagas or enchantment creatures you control to its hand, or return target saga card from our graveyard to our hand. So it gets us a little bit of reanimation on the go. Starfield Mystic again reduces the cost of them, and then when they hit the graveyard this gets bigger with +1/+1 counters. Sithis is a no-brainer. We're going to draw cards when we cast our enchantments to gain some life. Tower Winder I just played because I wanted a nice way of finding my command tower to help my mana out, and yeah, basically it's a 2 mana 1/1 reach death touch ramp spell, so I'm fine with that. Calyx, Guided by Fate, is just silly. We all know what this does when it comes into play. Whenever this enters or another enchantment enters, we get to put a +1/+1 counter on another creature. And then when this deals combat damage, we get to create a token that's a copy of it. You know the score with this. It's all good fun. Divan Trapper is a weird one, I'll be honest. Now, sagas count as historic, as we all know. So this is quite nice. With the amount of sagas we're casting, we might be able to tap down some of those big blockers so we can get in for some damage with a bit of luck. Hence why it's here. Messer Enchantress, card draw, you know what this does. Same with the Satyr Enchanter as well. And then the Cessian Champion, when it enters, we get to put a +1/+1 counter on this and get another card draw on the go. So we do keeping the cards going with this. Then we start hitting the summons from here. So we got Choco Mog, because who doesn't like giving all our other creatures +1/+0. Fenrir goes and finds us the basic land, and then next time we cast a creature spell, it comes in with an additional +1 counter on it. And then when it gets to stage 3, draw a card if you control a creature with the greatest power. That's fine, but 3 mana ramp spell that gives us a 3/2 body. Yeah, like that, thank you. Summon Ixion, might as well be here to exile some creatures and then get some +1/+1 counters and gain some life. The Verdurian Enchantress is also in to get us more card draw on the go. Archon, Sun's Grace, no-brainer. The amount of enchantments we're casting, we're going to have a whole load of Pegasus in the air to help us survive with a bit of luck, especially since they all have lifelink when this is around. Eidolon of Blossoms, just card draw when an enchantment we control enters, and Johora's Familiar cuts the cost of our historic spells down once again, including Yuna, which is nice. Summon Primal Galgu, also in. Deals full damage to target tapped creature an opponent controls, then another target creature we control gets +1/+0 and flies to the end of the turn. This is a 4-mana 3/3 flyer, so yeah, okay. One of the commander cards, Yojabi, I don't know how I've just butchered that entirely, but we get to exile target enchantment artifact or a tapped creature an opponent controls, and then we get to have all sorts of things happen over the next 4 turns. You can read them. They're too many to go through on these, otherwise I'll be doing this video for about 20 minutes, so there. One card I will point out that I think is really necessary in this deck when I thought about it was the Ondu Spirit Dancer. Whenever enchantment enters the battlefield under our control, we get to make a copy of it. Do this only once each turn, which is, yeah, okay, limited by once each turn, but having enchantments come in as copies so we get double summons, yeah, okay, then you can't really go wrong with this card from what I can see at all in this deck. It's just expensive for 5 mana for a 3/3. The Fat Chocobo is in as well to give us that nice bird token, then give all our creatures trample. Good King Mog, the 12th, is also in. We know what this does as well by now, hopefully. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell this turn, create a token that's a copy of a target non-saga token you control. Not going to get that off that much, but we can get lots of Moggle tokens, so end of game, really. Magus Sisters is also in. Gets through the random one, which is complicated, as we know. Summon Titans in to just mill 5, return all our land cards eventually, then pump up a creature significantly on turn 3. Knights of the Round, because I love this from Final Fantasy VII. Who didn't like going and getting your Chocobo in the top left-hand corner of the map to go and get the Knights of the Round materia? Yeah, had to be here for this. And then finally, Bahamut. Yeah, 9 mana is expensive for a saga, I'm not arguing that. But you do get to attack twice with it before it dies. And if you do get to attack twice with it and then let it go off for the 4th trigger, this creature deals damage equal to the total mana value of other permanents you control to each opponent. Will probably win you the game quite happily, to be perfectly honest. Sorceries. Well, Resurgent Belief. We've got a lot of things for return enchantments, as you can imagine from the So Resurgent Belief is a suspend one. Do this later in the game, not early in the game. Then we've got the ramp with Farseek, Nature's Law, Rampant Growth, 3 visits. More returning ways with Replenish, Brilliant Restoration, and Triumphant Reckoning round off the sorceries. Just one instant, coming in from Lord of the Rings, Lost to Legend. Put target non-land historic permanent from its owner's library. Put target non-land historic permanent into its owner's library 4th from the top. So you can let the final trigger go off for a saga, target it with this, let it go off. You should be okay. Artifacts, well, not many because obviously we're in green, so we've got all the ramp spells. We've kept it down a little bit. We've got Elixir of Immortality, so we do want to shuffle everything back in because it will go pear-shaped with this deck at some stage. A little bit of ramp with Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, and then the Emerald Medallion and the Pearl Medallion to cut the cost of our spells down even more. And then finally, the Thran Temple Gateway. Not a card you see that often in Commander nowadays. But when it first came out in Dominaria, you'd see it quite a lot. But nowadays, it seems to have died off. But it gets us around some of the really expensive casting costs of some of the sagas. You know, Bahamut, Knights of the Round. So, you know, we can cheat things in that way, which seems like a good plan to me. And then enchantments. All of these are non-creature, well, most of them are non-creature in Sagas. So we've got Azusa's Many Journeys, do the extra land, life gain, and then transform it into, eventually, the Likeness of the Seeker. So when it becomes blocked, we untap 3 lands. Builder's Talent for the wall, and then the +1/+1 counters. Song of Freya leads to ramp our mana, so we can make all our creatures tap for mana for a turn or 2. Enchantress's Presence, more card draw. The Asir Escape Valhalla is also nice, coming in from his Assassin's Creed. Exile a permanent card from your graveyard, you gain life equal to its value. Put a number of +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, equal to the mana value of the exile card, which is nice. And then when this gets to chapter 3, you return this and the exiled card to its owner's hand. You get to do it all again. Fine by me. Huntsman's Redemption just gives us the beast, then go and find a creature, and then pump up a couple of our creatures quite happily. The Restoration of Ijanjo is also in. Go and find a basic lanes, discard, get something about mana value 2 or less, and then chapter 3, exile it, and it becomes the Architect of Restoration. Whenever it attacks or blocks, we get a colourless spirit token. Not the end of the world. 3 Blind Mice, just because who doesn't like singing the song when they're playing the game, which is just fun. Hallowed Haunting is important though. As long as you control 7 more enchantments, creatures you control have flying and vigilance. Okay. And then whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you get a white spirit cleric creature token with this creature's power and toughness of each equals the number of spirits you control. Yeah, not going to argue with this one. That's fine. Historian's Boon is also in to give us those soldiers, and then when we get our final chapters triggering of our sagas, we get angels. Ajani Fells the Godside just gives us a way of dealing with anything big, so we have a bit of targeted removal, then some cat tokens, and a little bit of double strike on something. Boon of the Spirit Realm, might as well have this here, have this come in. Whenever the boon or another enchantment enters the battlefield, we get to put a counter on it, and then all our creatures get +1/+1 for each counter on the boon, so it makes life complicated for our opponents eventually as well. Elspeth Conquers Death, we all know what this does. Yeah. Okay, you're not going to return anything. Well, you could return Calyx, I suppose, or you could return one of the creatures that's been killed off. So it does have its upside, definitely. Starfield and Nyx might as well make all our non-aura enchantments creatures with base, with in addition to its... Blah. Let's start this again, shall we? At the beginning of your upkeep, you may return target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Thank you. And as long as you control 5 or more enchantments, each other non-aura enchantment you control is a creature in addition to its other types and has base power and toughness each equal to its converted mana cost. Yeah, bit of a mouthful, but returning the enchantments every turn, not going to worry about that too much. Finally, the Mending and Dominaria, just so we can do the whole milling, get some creatures into our hand, and then eventually return all our lands. Love it. And there, for the lands, well, it's all the green and white lands you'd expect to see in decks such as this. There's nothing particularly fancy. We are playing Reliquary Tower today and Temple of the False God to help out, because we will be drawing a lot of cards with the Reliquary Tower. We're also playing Hall of Heliod's Generosity, so another way of getting our enchantments from our graveyard back on top of our library, and that does put any enchantments, that counts our summon guys as well, because they're all enchantments. And yeah, that's really it. That is my take on Una, the Hope of Spira. How I built it right now, I mean, I've left out some of the game changers stuff. You know, we've got some of the enchantments, the one that creates treasure tokens, who's Smothering Tithe, whose name goes against my head, isn't in here. There's a couple of others I could have put in, but I decided to leave them out just to make this a bit more focused on the sagas more than anything else. But I have going to be, happy to play this one. I'm looking forward to playing this one on stream, so come along, check out the stream. There's a link down below to my Twitch stream. Come and follow me there. I hope you've hit the subscribe button here on YouTube, even if I have been a bit bumbly, because I'm doing this when I'm a bit tired, so sorry about that. If there's been any slip-ups, let me know in the comments of anything else you think I've missed out. And yeah, I'll be back next week with some more videos. I don't quite know what we're going to do next week, because I need to finish off some of the Final Fantasy ones, and I need to prep a whole load of stuff for my holiday. So, but we'll see. But anyway, we'll be back next week. So for now, have a good one, take care, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.